So good morning. God's grace and peace to you all. I bring you greetings from your sisters and brothers at Emmanuel Lutheran Church on the other side of town. Thank you for this opportunity to keep you informed about the progress we are making together. I think that no one envisioned that would be where we are today when 2020 began. But here we are. Through the adversity we faced, God gave us direction about how to build a better, stronger community focused on building His kingdom on the peninsula. This has been a focus for both of our leadership groups. It has not been easy, but it's been a clear choice. There is real grief, it's a sense of loss for longtime Emmanuel members. And I'm sure there's some apprehension for Resurrection members about another group jumping into their mix. But I think we must remember that we began together years ago, and we can and will move on together again. My position at Emmanuel is chair of the Board of Ministry Leaders, elected by the congregation as a board member, elected as chair by the board. So I have limited authority to act independently as a congregationally elected president would. But I tend to color outside of the lines. I always have. I think Bill knows that from a past life. On this. But first, let's talk a little bit about who we are and where we came from as Lutherans on the peninsula. Lutheran services began on the Virginia Peninsula during 1921 at the Wythe Community Chapel. During the Depression years, there were no services. In 1940, services were resumed at the Rouse Chapel on 25th Street in Newport News. The small mission congregation extended a call to Reverend Philip Preister of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in August 1942 and selected Emmanuel as its name. Emmanuel Lutheran Church was chartered as a congregation of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod during 1944. There are other stories intertwined with this that we'll all learn as we go, as how groups moved on and planted new churches across the peninsula, whether it's Resurrection or it's King of Glory up in Williamsburg. That congregation in February 1943 decided to build a chapel at the corner of Kecoughtan and Shenandoah Roads and purchased a parish house on Cherry Avenue. Following the dedication of the chapel, the mission created a constitution and installed Reverend Preister as the first pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church. The parish hall was constructed during the pastorate of Reverend Olin Gabbert in 1945, and soon thereafter the first kindergarten class opened for enrollment. Under the leadership of Reverend George McCree, the school was expanded to include first and second grades. The school gained a reputation as being one of the finest private schools on the peninsula. With continued growth in the school and the church, it was necessary to construct a new sanctuary in 1954 and a new school in 1960. Both the church and the school experienced periods of growth and decline over that time, and it became clear that any real growth must be preceded by the construction of a facility that would house the many activities for both institutions. On January 18, 1987, the congregation voted to appoint a building committee to prepare a proposal to construct a new facility. In September of '87, the congregation approved a plan submitted by the building committee to acquire 3 acres. Those 3 acres were at the corner of Magruder Boulevard and Semple Farm Roads, where we are today. And they voted to retain the services of an architect for a design project. If we fast forward to the end of the millennium, it brings us to Emmanuel's next story, but that will be chapter 2, and we'll talk about that the next time we meet. So what have we been up to? And I hope and I know I'm not saying anything that Andy hasn't already told you guys in your leadership what's going on. So what have we been up to since we both approved a merger of our congregations in December and the resolution for that? Andy and I have been discussing many possibilities and potential futures since late last spring. We've become pretty frequent Zoom buddies on meetings. Our primary focus right now at Emmanuel, as you can imagine, is the building. It's dispensing with the property. The property is on the market today. It's been on the market for about 3 weeks now. If anybody is interested, we offered it at just over $2.2 million on that in the land. I do have a brochure, Andy. I think the link was in my email or my newsletter. So if anybody's interested in that, they can certainly see our brochure. We've shown the church 3 times, two times to churches, once to a school. One of the churches will be returning on Tuesday to view it again. We see that as a good sign. We have had an offer, but in truth, we returned the offer without a counter. We were too far apart, and invited them to make another offer should they want to. We've engaged with the help of Lutheran Church Extension Fund, an organization called Foundry Commercial Brokers out of Orlando. They specialize in church and nonprofit properties. And they've partnered now with a local agency, Harvey Lindsay, if anybody's familiar with them, in Newport News, and a gentleman, Alonzo Bell, that is our local broker. We continue our coordination with the district together. We're doing that, looking for clarity on synod and district requirements for the merger. We need to begin, and we have begun, discussions about final and first worships in the 2 facilities. What would that look like? We've established a monthly meeting now with Pastor Goosey at Southeastern District. And we've also requested a one-on-one meeting with President Denninger. We, of course, been in close coordination, our 2 leadership groups and others between the 2 churches. I want to thank Wade and the elders for the outreach to join our elders with Resurrection, so we can begin to care for those concerns that I mentioned. Yeah, it will fall, and I'll pay no attention to it. Thank you. Our Board of Ministry leader meeting and your Board of Directors meeting, Andy comes to mine, and I attend and listen in. One of those like District of Columbia representative in Congress. I have voice but no vote, and that's a great approach. We've added our mail list to your MailChimp account. So that our members now are getting the Resurrection newsletter directly. We're talking about moving some more physical memorial stuff, and as well as monetary memorials, and how we're dealing with that right now. We're also talking about a time and talent survey for the folks from Emmanuel, understanding we don't want to overburden them, everybody too quickly. But every time I talk about time and talent, maybe our folks are tired of hearing me. I bring up Dietrich Bonhoeffer again from his book Life Together. And if you have not read that, it's a terrific read about a Christian community. And he says, in a Christian community, everything depends upon whether each individual is an indispensable link in a chain. Only when even the smallest link is securely interlocked is the chain unbreakable. A community which allows unemployed members to exist within it will perish because of them. It will be well, therefore, if every member receives a definite task to perform for the community, that he may know in hours of doubt that he, too, is not useless and unusable. Every Christian community must realize that not only do the weak need the strong, but also that the strong cannot exist without the weak. The elimination of the weak is the death of the fellowship. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that each one of us has a task, and there's no task in a congregation greater than another. They're all necessary. So that was my political statement. The Emmanuel continues to care for our facility while we're showing it, doing minor repairs. We're making it presentable for folks to see. That's getting organized every day. We're still fighting all the small battles of a facility. Our largest challenge, or two things. One, you'd be surprised how many subscription a church has to different things. Things that are being taken care of by members of the congregation, things that are being taken care of by the congregation. It's hard to capture all that. So we're busy trying to capture those and shut those down as we no longer need it. But our largest by far task will be file management. We probably, as you do, we have at least 15 3 or 4 drawer file cabinets full of stuff scattered about the building. That has to be gone through, and for us to understand what transfers with us, what comes over in digital files or hard copy files. So that's a big task for us right now. And people ask when we know what will trigger, the actual date for everything, for the end game. I say the end game is when we worship together for the first time. And that certainly would be a firm offer for our facility. Our transition teams are working well together. We've got groups working on stuff. We have groups working on music and worship now, the Altar Guild. I think, Andy, your wife is right now over there looking through the attic with my wife at Emmanuel. Churches are great storage areas. If you don't need it at home, you think maybe the church needs this, and it just kind of shows up somewhere at the church, and 20 years later, it's still there and nobody's used it. But you have a lot of that over time. We're working with sharing our resources, specifically consumables, the CDC stuff. That we're not using right now that can be used by children today. Andy and I are working on a memorandum of agreement which parrots the resolution but becomes a legal document. We're thinking about Easter and Palm Sunday. I think we've made a decision not to do a parking lot service, a full parking lot service on Palm Sunday, as well as Holy Week. And I believe we will have a Good Friday service and not a Maundy, Thursday service on that. So I think you can see that we've all been very, very busy, both congregations, as we seek to discern God's guidance on how we can move forward stronger together. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you this morning.